Well, we actually have some news. I mean, this channel's been dormant for 2, 3, 4, 5 days, something like that. Anyway, Christian Norgaard, Arsenal have placed an €11 million bid, what's that, £9 million, something like that, to sign Brentford's 31-year-old defensive midfielder Christian Norgaard. A player that genuinely, I'm not just saying this, I've liked since he's come into the Premier League. I knew a little bit about him before when he was at Brentford coming into the Premier League. Is that right? I'm pretty sure I did. He was with the team that got promoted, right? I only know because of Football Manager. Anyway, look, he's a good player. But there's going to be some natural underwhelmingness, if that's the word, from the Arsenal fan base. Because at one point we had Partey and Jorginho as kind of the two sitting midfielders, and a lot of people had kind of made their peace with the fact that we were going to move on from those two, but it looked like Partey was going to stay and maybe play the Jorginho role in the squad, and that's important to remember, so we'll talk about that in a sec. That was a report recently, although a lot of people watching Partey's performances last season would be rightly saying that Zubimendi's got to earn his place in the team. Partey doesn't look close to renewing, which means now we're looking for a backup to Zubimendi who will naturally become the starting six from the off. Now, I don't think he spent £55 to £60 million on a defensive midfielder who's 26 years old in Zubimendi if you're not looking to get him in the team quite quickly. But as we talked about with Ben Mattinson on the podcast, on Transfers Explained on the Goonerverse, was there a way in which Zubimendi and Partey could play together? Maybe there was that option because he favours the left-hand side, because he can get up the pitch a little bit more as well. But that's not something we're really going to see. We might see him next to Nørgaard. So what do I think of Nørgaard? Let's get into that. Like I said, quite like the player, but it feels a little bit underwhelming to go from Partey and Jorginho to Zubimendi and Nørgaard. And I say that more projecting how others are feeling. I don't really know. I don't know if that's a downgrade in options or if it's an upgrade in options. So let's think about it. The important thing to remember is Zubimendi will be seen as an upgrade on Jorginho, but Nørgaard will be seen as a downgrade on Partey. But the important thing to remember is actually Zubimendi for Partey and it's actually Nørgaard for Jorginho. Zubimendi is going to be our starting six. Is he better than last season's Thomas Partey? I don't know. Injury record, yes. There's plenty on the ball and off the ball I like. In this Arteta system, it's hard to compare to what he does for Sociedad in La Liga. So that remains to be seen. There'll be a lot of people in the comments of this video going, no, Zubimendi is not a better player than Thomas Partey. And there'll be a lot of people going, you haven't watched him. Yes, he will cook in this system. This is one of the most sought after sixes in the world. This is a player that Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, many others were looking at. Sorry about the sirens in the background. And Zubimendi coming in as an upgrade. Okay. So the question is, Nørgaard an upgrade on Jorginho? And the answer to that is, off the ball, he's a jeweler. He'll be very good on set pieces. He'll be physical. He can be quite up and down. Just remembering, I think he should have had a red card at the Emirates recently, shouldn't he? Anyway, back to it. But on the ball, he won't be as good as Jorginho. He's not. Those aren't his strengths. That's all to say he's not bad on the ball. There'll be a lot of reliance on Zubimendi, on lewis-skelly, on the players that invert and get into those positions, on Nørgaard to drop deeper. Because I don't think Nørgaard is someone who is going to be particular. I mean, Jorginho and Partey were two players we really trusted. We gave the ball to them in tight spaces. So one thing they had as a real kind of similarity in their profiles and their play as two options as sixes. Will Nørgaard be as comfortable? I don't know. Maybe, by the way. I'm not saying he won't be. It's not what I really know him for. It's not really what he's known for. But he'll be on threat on set pieces, and he'll be, a physical player that helps us dominate midfields in terms of our energy, in terms of our pressing, in terms of our physicality, like we have done for quite a while under Mikel Arteta now. We've got to look at this from a few different ways. Arsenal have offered, if we believe all the reports, Arsenal have offered Partey a 1-year deal on slightly reduced terms supposedly, but near enough the same. Which I think, if I'm guessing, he's on 200 grand a week. So I think he's probably been offered near a 170, 180. Supposedly he wants a pay rise on the 200 and a 2-year deal. Now, I want to stress supposedly. I wouldn't like if I'm a professional footballer and, people sort of saying I was asking for more money than I was. It's all reports, it's all this, that. Maybe he doesn't want 2 years. Maybe he wants one with an option. Maybe he wants 1 year with more money. Maybe he wants 2 years at no pay rise. We don't know, right? It's just the reports and the rumours that are doing the rounds. But the point is, Arsenal and Partey aren't agreeing. And it was about Thursday last week that it was really looking like they weren't going to agree. Hence the content on the Goonerverse around how we replace him. I'd like more of an attacking player coming in because I think Rice and Zubimendi can cover that area. We did the podcast with Ben, didn't we? Going through all the players. We actually talked about Nørgaard. So I actually recommend you go and watch that podcast because we went through everything about Christian Norgaard No, we didn't go through everything about it. We went through a lot of different players, and we touched on Christian Norgaard in a little bit of detail because he was particularly linked. But when you look at this from Arsenal's perspective, if they couldn't strike a deal with Partey on those supposed terms, then I think you kind of have to understand. Like, for someone who's proved his fitness really one season, yeah, some people say 22-23 season, but he did miss some big games in that. You can kind of understand why Arsenal aren't willing to really change the terms too much, but, you know, would keep him another year. Christian Norgaard, if Arsenal are bidding at around 7, 8, 9 million, then they must be confident they're getting him for about 10 to 12 million, maybe 15. But I mean, that would feel a bit high. But also what they're getting, a 31-year-old who's got 2 years left on his deal at Brentford, who is fundamentally there to just do a job as a backup and come in when needed, who won't be anywhere near the contract Partey was on. And actually that feels like a sensible move from a financial perspective, but also we're looking at this club going, can we not just do everything because it makes financial sense? That's what sort of keeps creeping in, the Sesko Gyökeres stuff. What we're really wanting is Arsenal just do what they've got to do to try and win titles. And once again, we've reinvented our midfield. We did it a few years ago when we tried to make Havertz the Xhaka replacement. We brought in Declan Rice because Partey had injury problems. And I just don't think reinventing our midfield completely is a good idea, although that kind of goes against what I was saying in terms of adding Morgan Rogers or whatever. But I guess we're actually only reinventing one position, aren't we? It's just with 2 players. But yeah, anyway, I don't know. I'd love to know your thoughts about all this. I think it's a sensible deal. I don't think it's one that gets me mega excited. But I think it's good to know that Arsenal need a backup DM, a backup goalkeeper. That's all looking like it's going to happen / done. Zubimendi is our starting 6. And now we can really focus on the forwards. We were hoping the forward stuff will have moved along. And the reason I haven't said much on this channel recently is because there haven't been really any major updates. Did you want me to tell you that Zubimendi was in London, like to sort of sign the papers and stuff? Because I told you it was all done. We knew it was all done. Did you want me to tell you that Kepa, today he's signed his new deal? That was confirmed by Fabrizio Romano. His release clause has been paid, 5 million from Arsenal to Chelsea. He will be an Arsenal goalkeeper. Did you want me to tell you that Sesko and Arsenal aren't agreeing on terms? Because we can all see that. Gyökeres supposedly wants Arsenal. Let's see. But it's all kind of dragging on a little bit on the striker front. But at least with all the other business, Arsenal are actually picking up the pace a little bit. We need to replace Partey. Well, before his contract's even officially expired, looks like we've got our backup in line. Worth knowing, Tottenham could come in for this deal. Thomas Frank's gone there. I don't know if it's... They've got Basuma and Bentancur and whatever, so I actually think they're covered in that position. But does he want a little bit more? Also, what's Nørgaard like as a box-to-box? I'd love to know that, because I've always seen him as just a pure sitting midfielder. But actually, can he get forward? I know he can in terms of being a threat from set pieces. Also, have I just made that up? Did he just score a set piece against us once, and now I just think he's a threat from set piece? I feel like there is something about him going forward and defensively from corners, free kicks and all that. But let's see. Anyway, to recap, Arsenal have made a bid of 11 million euros. What's in euros? They're an English club, Brentford. Anyway, I don't know why the reporting is all in euros, but... Or is it? Have I made that up? So tired, long day. I'm about to film with Graham. I'm going to do a breakdown of Zubimendi. We'll talk a little bit about Nørgaard as well, covering his understudy. But Arsenal are trying to bring Christian Norgaard from Brentford. So let's see if they do get that done. This is one I'd like to just happen quite quickly. We can all get on with our lives, knowing that the Partey thing and the whole DMs thing is put to bed. I still think we need creativity in midfield. We definitely need a left winger and a striker. That's the other thing. Shout out to Max, because he made this point. Is it sensible Arsenal doing this deal for Nørgaard at around 7-8 million and actually not getting a particularly expensive young 6, or getting someone like an Agume who'd probably be nearer 20 million, or going big on a Baleba? Is it better to do this kind of deal so there's a lot of money to throw at a Sesko or a Gyökeres or a Julian Alvarez or whatever, and a Rodrigo and whatever left winger we want? That probably makes some sense. But let's see. Anyway, like the video if you enjoyed it. Catch you in a bit.